I'm going to do this one again. I'm going to wrap it up in 20 minutes, and I want you to get very clear on how hormones and energy, or how much hormones play a role in energy and why it's not working for you, why your body's not responding the same way. The goal today is to get an awareness around how your gut, obviously we know that we've dived into that a lot, around how your gut really plays a massive role in your immune function, your energy, your mood, all these things. Deeper than that, we're going to look at your hormones. And today I just want to give a bit more awareness around what that really means for you, in making sure that if we're over 35, 40, and we're starting to see shifts in our body, or things aren't shifting the same way, it's harder to drop the body fat, it's hard to get that motivation to train, or even just simply recover from what you're doing. We want to make sure that you're aware of what hormones are at play, and more specifically, I guess, at the sex hormone level, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, making sure that stuff is on your side, okay? So as I put up in the poll the other week, this is our goal, this is our focus. I want to get clear on how hormones and energy play a massive role in your overall well-being, your health, vitality, and making sure you feel great in your own skin. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that all of those things are met, and this is where we need to start. We need to be aware of what those hormones really do in the body, okay? So first, males, it's going to be a little different. Obviously, females, we've got a couple more hormones involved. So I want to just give a quick clarification on what that is, so we know what we're really working with. And if you're not aware of these, this certainly needs to be your starting point, because calories, macros, and exercises mean absolutely nothing until we know your body's on your side. And hormones is a massive part of that, okay? So males, it's more to do with testosterone, right? If you can get your testosterone back on track, we can lower the estrogen, we can lower the body fat, and everything comes along with that. We can generally start to get our mood up, our strength up, our sex drive up, all these things, right? If we have low testosterone, if we're over 15, 18% body fat, we're going to notice an increase in estrogen. It's going to be much harder to clear this out. We're going to probably put more stress on the liver. There's going to be more inflammation in the body. Things tend to go downhill. So the link between your gut and hormones is really inseparable. This is if you're taking in foods that are inflammatory, if you're not looking at the health of and optimizing your recovery in the way of your sleep, how you're eating, how your body is simply absorbing that nutrients, that's the stuff that's really important, not how many calories you're eating, okay? So if we can learn to get this body fat down by optimizing what we're eating in order to upregulate what's happening in our body, really get our body working on all cylinders, rather than simply suppressing the body. What we'll end up doing is actually suppressing testosterone as well, right? So when I talk about suppressing these fat-burning mechanisms, it is actually this testosterone as well, making sure we can upregulate this body, better endurance, better strength, better sex, better fat-burning ability, okay? With females, we've got a bit more going on, okay? We've got two main phases I want to focus on today. Obviously, there's ovulation. We can dive into a full cycle, but we've got to be aware that there's a follicular phase of us coming up, and we're going to notice there's a good increase in progesterone. Through that phase, we're going to notice our strength's going up. We get away with a bit more carbohydrate. We can really get some strength out of what we're doing. Whereas if we come into the luteal phase, we're starting to come down, day 16 to 24-ish, we're going to notice that things start to decline in the way that progesterone starts to increase and your estrogen is dropping. So I've got that on the way. But what I mean is your estrogen is coming up, okay? So for the follicular phase, estrogen is on its way up. You're going to start feeling good. Strength is going to come up. And then as we get to that second phase, you're going to notice progesterone is starting to increase, okay? So if that's out of whack, if your cycle is not on track, that's really something that we'd have to work into with Cherie. She's absolutely gun when it comes to hormones, but understanding where you are in that phase is going to make a big, big difference in your ability to train. So where you are in that cycle is going to make a massive difference to your insulin sensitivity, your strength, your endurance, your recovery, how you feel in your own skin, general mood to want to do these things. So knowing where you are and really making those adjustments for your training and nutrition will make a big, big difference, okay? So making sure that if we are in that first follicular phase, you're going to notice that this awareness around your strength going up, your ability to use nutrients a little better, we can probably push a little harder. We can probably get away with it a bit more. Whereas when you're coming down into the luteal phase, you'll start to notice that maybe a little bit more fats in your diet needed. Maybe a bit more yoga or walking might be more beneficial rather than just pushing harder and harder, okay? So really making sure the biggest trend here is rather than just working harder and trying to burn this body fat off by suffering through, how can we learn from what our body is already telling us, making these shifts and understanding what is really going on deeper down so that we can allow stuff to move forward, okay? So health foundations, we want to make sure that these four elements, there's not all of them, but certainly areas I want to shine light on today, is stress is a massive part of this, right? Everybody knows that stress is going to suppress our ability to burn body fat, but I want you to rethink stress and knowing that the amount of exercise you do is just as is the stress on the body just as much as emotional stress. Okay, so or mental stress. We want to make sure that we are taking this into account. So if we're stressed out all day and we're not exercising, we're not moving, we're going to notice that this is going to be really, really challenging to burn body fat. But on the other side, if we're training all the time, we're not allowing the body to rest and recover, it's also going to be challenging to burn body fat. So we have to find that happy medium, that we're not trying to work so hard that it's not working anymore, but we're also making sure we're getting enough to elicit that response we're after. Okay, fats is a really, really useful part of our diet. So we want to know that a certain percentage of our diet, typically 30% will be a good starting point to make sure we're allowing hormones to work the way they are. Okay, fat is a really, really essential nutrient or macronutrient in the way hormones work in the body. And when people are looking at calories, they tend to really drop their fat down far too low, which is also suppressing these fat-burning hormones as well, because they don't have enough fat in their diet to support what functions are vital in the body. Okay, so really, really need a lot of fat in the body. I think trans fat is not really a fat at all. It is a fat, but it's man-made. It's not a natural fat found in food. Saturated fat is not bad by itself until it's paired with sugar. Okay, so trying to make sure that you are getting that polyunsaturated, you are getting the monounsaturated and the saturated fat in your diet. The gut, as I mentioned before, governs all. If you're not taking into account the inflammatory markers, you feel bloated, gassy, lethargic, all these things are going on, you're going to be working against your body. You're going to be working against these hormones. It's a big, big part of your energy, okay? It's not simply food as energy, because if you're eating a ton of carbs, and you'll find you get really sleepy off them, right? We're not utilizing that food particularly well. So it's more about, as with everything, the quality of that food you're eating rather than simply the quantity. Okay, and then the last one I want to really highlight here is movement and light. Understanding that if you're simply weight training and then sitting in front of a bright screen all day, you're not in a particularly healthy state. A couple of days a week, go for a walk, get outside, get into nature, get natural light exposure, ideally in the first half of the day. I just did a really, really big workshop with our clients about this, and understanding that the light exposure you get in the morning is so vital on functions of the body, and actually preventing, at some level, I'm going to put some quotation marks around that one, to make sure we're not getting burnt in the afternoon by the sun. We're not getting, the reason we're at one of the likely reasons we're at such a high level of skin cancer is because nobody goes into the sun until 12 or 1 p.m. And they've never had their body's never had time, those cells have never had time to get enough red light and UV exposure in the morning to prepare for what's happening in the afternoon. So more morning light will make a big, big difference. And then obviously late at night as well, we want to get rid of that blue light exposure to allow melatonin, another hormone, to actually be secreted and to allow our body to calm down. Don't take melatonin as a sleeping supplement. It's simply going to remove, it's not taking into account the biggest picture, right? The biggest thing I want to get away from is doctors are giving you something to cover up an issue. It's not preventative. It's not going to solve the issue. It's just covering the problem. If you're taking a melatonin supplement to fix something, you're always going to end up, you're going to have to always take it in order to have that response. Okay, start to look at the bigger picture as to what's really working in the day, to know that light is a massive part and signal of what's happening with the circadian rhythm. Okay, and then last one to dive into here is the energy portion, and making sure that with our workouts, the challenge for you should be, how can you get the most out of 30 minutes of exercise? Really make sure that you're eliciting that response in the muscle, getting the stimulus and being able to upregulate these natural mechanisms in the body like testosterone, growth hormone, all this stuff, to make sure that our body is able to respond and recover long term, rather than simply training harder and harder and seeing the suppression of our hormones, making it harder to recover, digging a bigger hole that we can recover from, right? Really thinking about getting more out of less, so that we're really being specific with how we're approaching the workout, rather than just trying to throw everything in. And hopefully more training, more cardio, longer runs will help you move forward. Okay, the big part here, as I mentioned, is you should be in a parasympathetic response for as much of the day as possible. You're in a sympathetic response when you're training, and then get out of that and spend more time recovering, rejuvenating, low stress, chilling out. It'll make a big, big difference. Okay, so obviously that's not like we're not going to work. Obviously we've got things to do in a day. Maybe there's kids to pick up, there's work to do, all sorts of stuff. But we need to make sure that separating the event from the response is really the challenge, and the overall objective with this is trying to make sure that we can be busy, we can get things done, but try to do it in a bit more of a calm state, that we're not reactive and getting pissed off and triggered at everything around us. It has such a big response in our body composition. Okay, and then the last part is, as I've already mentioned the whole way through, is simply, I want your biggest focus here to be upregulating the body, getting it working on your side, rather than suppressing what's happening, right? If you're counting your calories or you're fasting for half the day or you're training 6+ times a week, you're suppressing your body's natural ability to perform, to drop the body fat, to have great energy. And the problem is the more caffeine, the more pre-workouts that are becoming such a normal part of fitness is actually making it separate from health, right? Everyone's trying to work harder and crush it in the gym, which is actually causing them to be further away from their health goals and feel like they're crushing a workout, although they're just digging a bigger hole than they can actually recover from, right? We want to make sure that if you are taking caffeine to borrow energy in order to work out, at some point you've got to repay that debt. More recovery, more rejuvenation, right? So if you want to get more out of your body, you want to perform at a high level, you've got to really take this stuff seriously with your gut, with your hormones, with your light exposure, with the ability to focus on being in a parasympathetic response through more of the day, so our digestive system and all these good things inside our body are working. Okay, so that was the main stuff I wanted to touch on today. Get really clear on what is happening inside the body with the hormones, why it is getting in the way of your energy production, and if your hormones are not on your side, as with your gut, you're really working against your body. Your body is not going to be working on your side, or definitely not responding the same way. Okay, so if you're, like I said, over that 35, 40, and you're starting to see things on the decline, you're starting to see the hormones aren't really on your side, it can be a really, really challenging process to get things back on track. And if it is, just 5-10 kilos you need to lose, or if it's 40 kilos, you've got to make sure that it starts with your hormones in your gut. Otherwise, you'll find this is a really, really challenging battle. Sure, you can lose weight in 6 weeks. Most people will be able to if you put yourself in a calorie deficit. I'm not saying that won't happen, but we're looking at this long term. We're trying to make sure that you're making this an adjustment to the way you live your life, so that long term you actually feel like you're in control of your body fat, your energy. You feel like you can recover. You feel like you just feel good in your own skin. You're comfortable in your own body. Your mood's good, and you're really in control of what's happening. When you understand this deeper level, you know what's happening. You're asking better questions. Now you know what to do. Okay. And this, as you know, is a massive part of what we're doing with all our clients, and making sure that it is lifestyle long-term changes, not simply a drastic diet. Because if you have to have a different diet, then this is mum's meal, and and everyone else has to eat a different meal. That becomes a very challenging and hard place to sustain. So with the stuff we're focusing on here, hopefully you can see that it's really bringing it back to how we can move you forward, how we can focus on the bigger aspects that actually move the needle, allow you to live your best life, and really allow health to improve your life, not simply feel like you're suffering and it holding you back. Okay, have an amazing night, have an amazing weekend, and I hope that was really helpful. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Add any comment below. If you're watching the replay of this, comment replay, and please reach out if you do have any questions. If you do want to get on a call and go through this stuff with you, I'm always here to go through that conversation, and we can set up time.